Hello, hello. Welcome back to Northern Gazelle, the channel that's a little Bob the Builder, a little Jimi Hendrix, but mostly lame dad jokes. Today, I bring you part two of my solo guitars kit build in support of a local animal rescue. In case you missed part one, the finished guitar is going to be auctioned off and all proceeds will be donated to Northern Critters in Need. Because I know your time is precious, your attention span is short, and therapy is very expensive, let's dive right into staining and sealing the neck. Hopefully, you'll find it relaxing and informative. Okay, so in the previous video, I gently sanded this thin spalted maple veneer top to 320 grit in preparation for some stain. My original plan was to stain the body in a faded tobacco burst pattern using the black, dark walnut, and sesame water-based stains because it's one of my favorite guitar looks. I spent over a week practicing with these stains on a couple CNC routed spruce body templates generously provided by my buddy Perry from Monkey Guitars. I also picked up a foot-long slab of 1x8 maple from a local lumber store to see how it would react, because ultimately I'll be staining a maple top, right? Let me just say, the maple slab was way harder to stain bursts consistently, and it really shook my confidence because I only have one shot to get this right. On a typical 1/4-inch thick maple top, you just sand away any failed stain attempts, but the kit veneer is too thin for that in my opinion. The other issue is that this kit came with a white perloid pickguard, which passed my wife's keen inspection with flying colors. She absolutely loves it. Problem is, it looks kind of weird on a tobacco burst finish. Don't you agree? Leave a comment and let me know. Finally, the spalted maple design, flanked by flame maple on the sides, is just gorgeous, and covering it up with a dark burst finish will probably detract from the natural beauty. So all that to say, I'm throwing in the towel on my tobacco burst idea. Instead, I've chosen a more classic Telecaster body finish, butterscotch. I'm hoping the simplicity will let the top and pickguard shine through as focal points on the body, and it will also complement what I'm planning for on the neck. Let's get to work. Through experimentation, I diluted my sesame stain with a bit of water that should achieve a transparent butterscotch color because I still want the maple figuring showing through nicely. First thing I'm going to do is wipe down the top with a damp rag to hopefully avoid any stain blotching. Next, I'm going to get a generous amount of stain on this piece of cut up t-shirt, let it soak in, and start applying it to the body. See down here, the spalted section isn't really picking up the stain as well as this flame maple side. And the first coat's slightly uneven, and I think I can go a little bit darker as well. So I'm going to apply a second coat. Hopefully that will even things up, and we'll get a bit more color down at the bottom here and right here. Using the dry rag just to pick up any wet spots and help even the finish. So I'm going to let this dry for about 10 minutes and flip it over and do the sides and the back. So that's the first coat. You can see things are a little inconsistent. So I'm gonna give it a second coat. Yeah, especially up in this area. I've heard basswood is pretty thirsty, basically sucks up the stain a lot. Well, might need to do 3 coats, but hopefully 2 will do the trick. So that's 2 coats on the back and the sides. And the top. We're gonna let this dry overnight and attack it with a bit of steel wool to even out the consistency. It's looking pretty good though. Okay, while the body's drying, we're going to work on the neck, give it a little color as well. First thing we need to do is tape off the fretboard so we don't get stain on the rosewood. And yeah, I want to stay in the same color family, but I want to go several shades lighter, so there's a bit of contrast between the neck and the body. So I've added water to my stain, added even more water to my stain to dilute it, and we'll give it a coat and see what that looks like. Using a new rag here because the other one's pretty saturated. Of course, because it's my house, there's dog hair on everything. Like I said, I only wanted a little bit of color on here. I don't even want to give it a second coat because I think it might darken it up too much. Again, I'm going to hit this up with some steel wool tomorrow after it dries, and I should even out any inconsistencies. There is a little bit of splotchiness, but generally it's pretty good so far for contrast. I think that's a pretty decent difference. I didn't want to leave it totally natural maple on the neck because the poly coat that I'm going to use doesn't add any coloring to the wood. And I think it would have just been a little too white, but yeah, so we'll see you tomorrow. All right, so I've let everything dry overnight, and this is the color that I have. Again, I went lighter on the neck than I did the body. There's a little bit of roughness going on here, so I am going to lightly sand with 400 grit paper, a little felt pad here. Friend suggested that I try wet sanding this, so I will try that. I'm just going to take my bottle, spray a little on here, and give that a shot. That feels great. I think we're done with the neck. This is about the color that I'd like to keep it. Just a hint of yellow. Kind of looks like that. Typical fender neck. So we're going to put this off to the side. But this, I think we're going to hit it with one more stain coat, just because I like to get a bit more contrast, a bit more color on the body, but still let this figuring show through. And since I sanded it, I've kind of scuffed it up a little. So yeah, one more coat. I know that's still a little wet, but that is what I was going for. And just for a little contrast, there's the neck. Hopefully that's going to be what the finished body looks like. I really like that combination. So I'm going to let this dry overnight again and hit it up with some steel wool, knock back any grain that got raised, maybe hit it up to gently up to 600 grit. But I've seen people use a steel wool trick where they go around in like a swirly pattern, and it just really helps to blend the stain together and then lift any excess stain. And hopefully we won't want to lift too much because I really love the saturation of that color right now. But yeah, this is a learning experience for me because it's my very first kit. So you can watch all the YouTube videos in the world, but until you try it yourself, you don't really know. See you tomorrow. Okay, so it's next day again. We've got 3 coats on here and it's dry. It's a lot smoother than the first time, but there's a little bit of roughness, more like a fuzz. So I'm going to rub it around with some steel wool and see what happens. I've also got my shop vac here, pick up any of the particles. Because yeah, the steel wool will definitely leave a bit of a mess. So I think you could probably skip that step on a solid color or a single color. Most of the videos I was watching, because my original intention was to do a burst on this guitar, showed using the steel wool, and I think the effect of that was to help blend your lines in your bursts out to help get a nice smoother transition or gradient between the different colors. I did notice it lifted some of the color in a couple spots here, not too badly, and it did blend some of the darker into the lighter spots here, but it didn't really hit there. Just don't think it was aggressive enough grit to hit some of the end grain here that's been raised up. So I'm just going to use some 600 grit paper quickly to touch up a few of the rough spots. And again, I think you could just jump to 600, 400 or 600 grit. I know I said I only had up to 320 grit in the first part of my video, but ended up picking up a little bit more sandpaper for the job. Of course, I just nicked this section with the side of my sandpaper because I wasn't very careful, and it scraped some of the finish away. So I'm just taking an old rag that had some dye on it and dipping it in water. See if I can blend some of that stain back in there. All right, I'm gonna let that dry and then hit it with some sanding sealer. Ready? Okay, so I'm recording audio after the fact because it was way too loud in my kitchen to speak while applying my first top coat. After researching various top coats, I decided to try out a satin water-based polyurethane due to its durability, clear color, and quick drying time. Each coat only needs about 2 to 3 hours of dry time, meaning you can apply multiple coats in a day. I did 3 in total. I heard about this poly finish on the Guns and Guitars YouTube channel, where he was comparing various wipe-on finishes. And he seemed pretty impressed with it, though he was applying a wipe-on version while I used a paintbrush. As you can see, the poly goes on a bit milky, but when it dries, it's crystal clear. Now, the Guns and Guitars guy said he uses steel wool in between each coat, but the back of the can says not to use steel wool because any stray particles can rust under your finish. So instead, I wet sanded with 400 grit sandpaper after the first 2 coats, then wet sanded with 600 grit after my third and final coat. Finally, I gave everything a nice buff with superfine steel wool, and that's what really took it to the next level in my opinion. The body and neck feel ultra smooth and look amazing. After 24 hours of drying, I masked off the pickup and control cavities and applied my conductive shielding paint. As per the directions, I did 2 coats and made sure to leave a little paint on the guitar top to make contact with the bridge and control plates once they're installed. I'll apply some shielding tape to my pick guard and explain the purpose of shielding your cavities in the third and final video in this series. Now, the last thing I did was give the rosewood fretboard some conditioner to prevent cracking and premature wear. Conditioner also makes things look and feel better too. So there you have it. Part 2 finito. Here's my finished body. I'm really glad I went with a single color finish here because I think it's going to make the maple figuring and the eventual pickguard the stars of the show. The finish here is ultra smooth, and I think it's going to be very scratch resistant. As for the neck, I think it turned out really quite nice. There's just enough color here, but it still contrasts pretty well with the body. The headstock logo turned out way better than I thought it would, and the speed of this neck is going to be unreal once everything's put together. So please like and subscribe if you want to catch my next video where we put this whole thing together with all the hardware. We're also going to plug it in and see what kind of tones we can pull out of a totally stock, non-upgraded solo guitars kit. Lastly, I wanted to remind you that this is a charity build for Northern Critters in Need, and the guitar will be going up for auction soon. Please share the video with anyone you think might be interested in bidding. So until next time, take care. Not again.